Well, as you can tell, we're here at the workbench, and Dave is certainly ready with lots of rigs and techniques. So, Dave, we're going deep.
Well, you know, it's hot,
Yeah.
as everybody knows. And when it's hot, you know, the bass like to find comfortable temperatures. They're just like we are, like I said before. They like to be comfortable. They'll find the most consistent, coolest temperatures they can, and that usually means deeper water. And the great thing about that is usually you concentrate them, that we can see them on our sounder, concentrates them in the same places that some of the shallower places, but we're looking for the same sort of places in deeper water. It's kind of hard for guys to get used to fishing in deep water in a lot of places because, you know, it's easy to pick a target on a shoreline and cast to it. You know, it's natural for everybody to just want to flog the shorelines. But, you know, the fish will be out deeper sometimes, and what you have to do is you have to learn to, instead of just cast into a spot on a shore, you end up trying to cast to a spot that's deep down, you know, 20, 30, sometimes even 40 feet underneath you or out in front of you. So the key to that is you want to make sure, you know, that when you're fishing that deep, that big open water, is to use your sounder to locate those good spots. You know, you're looking for suspended fish or deep cover with bait fish suspended around it. You're looking for creek beds, ledges, places where two different types of bottom come together, like where the grass stops and the rocks or the sand starts. In deep water, that's a good place to be fishing.
When I was with Matt, a road bed comes to mind. Right
Yes,
now,
yes.
Where it drops off the road.
Right, a nice road bed or some place that. And a lot of these places that you find out there don't get hammered like all the places on the shore, because it's a little harder to get your bait down there and keep it in that zone, which is one of the things I'm going to talk about. It's very important to keep your bait in that zone. You know, if you're fishing in 40 feet of water, you know, you might want that bait to be fishing at 35 feet. You don't want to be on the bottom a lot of times. Sometimes you do if the fish are right on hanging on the bottom, and we're going to be using some of these rigs we're going to talking about. You're going to be wanting to be on the bottom, but even at the same time, if you're using something else that's moving, if we're trying to cover ground, if we're trying to find the fish first, when we're using something like a search bait or even a chatter bait or something like that, we don't need to be have it right on the bottom. We can have it be cruising 3 or 4 or 5 feet up off the bottom, and the fish will come up off the bottom to eat those things. And that gives us a chance to cover ground, make sure that there's the fish, even though we might be marking something, that'll tell us that, hey, we get a bite, there might be fish here, and we can do that because we're covering ground and making long casts, you know, to get the bait reach down there. Now we're going to start off down there with a Texas rig. I mean, this is a rig that, you know, it's got Texas on it, so it's got to be a good rig, you know. And this allows you to keep a soft plastic deep as you want to put a big weight on it, you know. I think that's a 3/4 ounce weight. You can put a 1/2 ounce weight on there. You can put up to a 1 ounce weight on there if you want to.
Bass Assassin RSB.
A little RSB worm. You can use a fat job. You could use a tap out worm, whatever kind of worm you want to put on there. The longer the better. You know, we're looking for big fish, right, when we're fishing that deep water. Now, a lot of guys will sometimes put a little tab on here, you know, a sinker stopper or something, bobber stopper.
Bobber stopper.
Anything to peg the weight against the worm. It's really not necessary unless you're going to be fishing in really deep cover, in my opinion. Now, next is a Carolina rig, and this is a rig that keeps the weight a good 2 feet, sometimes 3 feet, sometimes 4 feet away from the weight. You know, if you're going to be fishing over real rocky places, you might want to keep your leader short between your weight and the bait, because you'll be able to hop it through the rocks a lot easier. If you have a longer leader, sometimes it'll drape behind the rock and you'll go to move it. Same way,
hung up.
Yeah, it'll get hung up. So if you're fishing in a little shorter, a tighter cover, you might want to keep your rig short. Here is the last one. Here is a nice one here. It's a drop shot. Now, a lot of people use a drop shot when they're in finesse mode, you know, but you don't really have to use it as a finesse bait. If you can fish in really deep water with a bigger worm with a drop shot. And what you really want you to do is you want to make sure that your worm is perpendicular. You know, see how it stays right there? It's perpendicular.
Right.
You use a good knot so you can keep that perpendicular. Use a heavy weight. You know, they make tungsten weights that are made for drop shots. A lot of them are, you know, I like to use a big heavy one, and this penetrates really well into cover and keeps your worm above the cover. And when you just get that thing, and this allows you to drop right on top of your cover too, and keeps your bait in the zone a lot longer instead of like crankbaits and stuff like that, where you're just whizzing through a search bait, where you're whizzing through the area where you want to fish. The drop shots and the Carolina rigs and all that stuff allows you to keep everything in a spot longer.
And remember,
Slower.
guys, big swim baits, big jig heads, big lipless crankbaits,
Yes.
big deep diving crankbaits.
Like a war pig,
all of that
yeah.
all applies, right, Brie?